is Coley, and welcome back to Undercover Reading. We're reading The Captain's Kid. We're up to episode 31. So if you haven't caught up, please go back to episode 1. And you've got a lot of hours of reading ahead of you. Today we are reading chapter 7, A Birthday to Remember, part 2. And if you'll remember where we left off, Dad just walked in on an almost kiss between Brandon and Audrey. Darn, ruined again. I was still trying to formulate words when Dad ruffled my hair. His eyes twinkled. Ah, young love. Gosh, I remember my first crush back in Lexington Middle School. Maggie had the most beautiful coppery red hair, and Dad, can we not talk about this? Sure, Spidey, sorry. I just feel terrible for interrupting your birthday kid. Dad, stop now. Not another word, please. He raised his eyebrows at me. If we're celebrating birthdays early, he said with a wink. Would you like your present now? A present? He remembered. Save it for the actual day, I said. That is, can you have dinner with me tomorrow? He thrust his hands to his hips. Of course. Order up whatever you want, and Siravola will see to it. We'll make a huge cake so all your friends can have some. What kind do you want? Was there any doubt? Dark chocolate, like Aunt Manda's, drenched with cherries. Done and done, he said. Speaking of drenched, that sweaty shirt of yours has seen some better days. I'd recommend changing if you plan on making the 6-day vids. I may pass on tonight, I said. Even though we could access all the decent shows ever made through our wall screens, handhelds, desk comps, watch comps, whatever, there was still something special about streaming it on a huge wall display in the company of a crowd. 6-day mornings at school, we all voted. The littles would choose a family show to be played at 1900, which was already going on. The middles picked a show for the 2100 slot, usually action thrillers or comedies, and the uppers would pick the Midnight Madness show, horror, of course. Always gave me nightmares, but I couldn't stop myself from watching. But not tonight, the mood wasn't right. I'd had enough drama, comedy, and horror for one night already. I stripped off my tear-stained shirt, wadded it in a ball, and tossed it into the freshener. I pulled it back out and gave it a sniff. It smelled like Audrey. I could just keep it under my pillow forever. And if anyone ever found out, laughing at myself, I stuffed it back in the freshener and started the cycle. I sat in the corner comfy chair in my room, strumming the mandolute. My fingers worked on their own, devising a new sweet melody. In my head, I replayed the conversation with Audrey. One thing stuck out and cycled. What gives you the right to make decisions that affect me without even asking? She was right, of course. And that got me thinking about Dad and Command and all the decisions he had to make that affected other people, like not calling off the mission even when his son was threatened. And that took me in another direction, thinking about Masuna and her people's decision to return to Earth, as they were. Had they asked the children? Had they even thought about how this would affect them? Leaving a hostile planet, they were returning to a hostile culture. What about the next generation? How long would it take for the Sequeunos to be accepted, if ever? Minor chords filled the air with sadness and regret. I realized they were coming from my own fingers. Overwhelmed with heaviness, I put down the mandolute. I thumbed on the desk comp, accessed Masuna's public files, and opened her album and found that image of her 3 blossoms. I smiled at their odd, grinning little faces before moving on to her other photos. I found stunning shots of the Esperanza landscape. Magenta sunrise over the ocean, golden sunset over yellow grass fields. There were pictures taken during her long visit to Earth, images of the tribe and dwellings they would be returning to. Good idea, I thought. They should have a hint of what to expect out of the world and culture they were joining. Most of the photos showed Amarins in their daily lives, weaving, farming, sheep herding, cooking, playing. A familiar face jumped out at me. River Swift, her guard. The others in that shot were watching a ball game, smiling, arms up and cheering. River Swift stared straight at the lens, his handsome face emotionless, his eyes unreadable. Slightly behind him in profile was another face that looked familiar. It wasn't the other guard, I was positive. I studied the half-face in puzzlement. The back of my brain itched. Then I got it. Double dang, what did it mean? I called Karthik. You're going to have to stay tuned for the next episode to see what Brandon suddenly realized. Thanks for joining me.